Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So as promised, I am going to do a quick little video about my preeclamptic symptoms as well as my failed induction story with Lincoln while he is napping. I'm going to take a few minutes. So my preeclamptic symptoms started in the second trimester, but I did not know what they were. I started seeing spots and floaters. And I didn't think much of it because I had been told, or I'd heard, that changes in vision is a common symptom of pregnancy. So I just assumed that that was a change in vision due to pregnancy and that it wasn't a big deal. Especially since they weren't permanent spots. They would go away. But I had a little bit of an episode in the temple of our church which really concerned my mom, and she made me promise to mention it to my doctor. I was like, it's no big deal, it's not anything to worry about, but fine. I had my doctor's appointment a couple days later, and I just mentioned it offhand as we're getting ready to leave, and I'm like, that's no big deal, right? And he's like, no, actually that's a big concern, because that is a sign of preeclampsia. And all I knew about preeclampsia was it had something to do with your blood pressure. It was high blood pressure. And my blood pressure was fine, so I didn't think anything of it. But he wanted me to do a 24-hour urine test, and that was the most annoying thing that I've done probably this whole pregnancy. If you can avoid it, avoid it. It was horrible. But I digress. So I do that. I turn it in on a Wednesday, and then on Friday I get a call from the doctor. And it's never good news when the doctor calls you with lab results. And they said that the proteins in my urine was elevated and that I needed to start an aspirin regimen. He wanted me to take a baby aspirin every day. And he also bumped up my appointment to meet with him, and he also asked me to get an appointment with a specialist. I get the phone call from the doctor on Friday with my results, which is never good news when they call you. And the doctor told me that the proteins in my urine was elevated, which is another sign of preeclampsia. So he was concerned. He wanted me to start a baby aspirin regimen, as well as he moved up my appointment a week to see him sooner. And he asked me to get an appointment with the fetal medicine specialist. And he also told me that I should buy a blood pressure machine from like the grocery store or CVS or whatever, and start taking my blood pressure every day. My dad already had one because of his heart problems. So I started taking my blood pressure. He told me the signs to look for, if it was above 140, or if the top number was above 140, or if the bottom number went above 90, to give the office a call. And that if I started getting really bad headaches, give the office a call, etc. So I start taking my blood pressure every day, and it started to go up and up and up. And the more it went up, the more I kind of stressed about it, and went to the specialist and had an ultrasound actually the day before my baby shower. And one of the concerns with preeclampsia is the size of the baby, because the only way to cure preeclampsia is to deliver. And so they are concerned of the size of the baby to make sure the baby would be healthy enough to be delivered early. And so we had an ultrasound, and the baby was measuring big, 7.5 pounds estimated. So big baby, and I still had like 3 weeks to go. So that was not a concern, and I explained my vision issues to the specialist, and he said that that's really not a concern when it's preeclamptic. It is, your vision will kind of go dark, like dark spots, and they don't go away. And mine would like float around a little bit, and they were temporary. They would only last a few minutes and then they would go away. So he wasn't worried about that. But they did tell me at the ultrasound that the baby is breech. He was sideways at the time. And the tech didn't seem concerned about it at all, and so I didn't really worry about it. And then the day that I turned 39 weeks was a Monday. I woke up with the worst headache I've ever had, and I couldn't get out of bed. It was just awful. So I waited as long as I could and finally get out of bed. I checked my blood pressure because I know a headache is a sign of high blood pressure, and it was crazy high. Like the highest it's ever been, definitely in the call the doctor right away range. But I knew I had a doctor's appointment in the next like hour or so. So I just tried to take it easy. I went to the appointment and I let the girl know who weighs me and stuff. I let her know that it was really high in the morning. So she took my blood pressure, and again, it was really high. She didn't tell me what it was, but she was like, yeah, that's high. And she leaves, and I hear her talking to the doctor outside. He comes in and he checks me, which, side note, that's the first time I had been checked, like to see if I'm dilated, and holy cow, that hurt. No one told me how bad it hurts. Like I knew they put their hand up there and to feel it with their fingers, feel your cervix, but no one told me how much it hurt. Like I don't know if that's like some secret that people don't talk about, or if I'm just a huge baby because, anyway. He checks me. I am high and tight. He says there's no progress towards labor at all. But because of my blood pressure is so high that he wanted me to go right home, pack my bag, and head right to the hospital to be induced. I was 39 weeks, so the baby was a healthy size. He looked at the ultrasound and he wasn't concerned about that. He was more concerned about my health with my blood pressure. So he told me it's not an emergency, like go home, pack, and then head to the hospital. So that's what I did. I went home, I got my stuff, I got Patrick. He didn't go to the appointment because he didn't feel comfortable watching a guy shove his hand up my hoo-ha, basically. And I don't blame him. So picked him up, we go to the hospital. They have a room ready for us. We go right into the room, we skip triage, and they start taking my information, putting it into the computer. I get dressed right away. They give me a gown. They put 2 monitors on my stomach, one for contractions and one to monitor the baby's heart rate. And they start an IV. And I get there, it was a little after noon, I would say. And then around 3, the other doctor in the practice came and told me that they were going to start Cervidil. Because my cervix had not dilated, let alone softened, they're going to start Cervidil first to kind of prep the cervix before they start to really induce labor. So, and that's kind of looks like a tampon with medication on the end. And so they put that in, and for 2 hours, I'm not allowed to get up at all. I have to stay laying down. And then the Cervidil stays in for a full 12 hours. And the plus side is that I could eat. So, because I was not actually in labor. So that goes in around, it was around a little after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And so for 2 hours, I'm not allowed to move. We're watching TV, the Olympics are on. And I started getting my really, really bad headache again. And it hadn't really ever left, but it was getting worse and worse. And the nurse kept offering me a pain medication for it, saying they had something ordered, I could get it whenever. And I kept saying, no, it's fine, no, it's fine, no, it's fine. And then that evening, it was so bad and I was having a hard time sleeping. And I said, okay, fine, give me the stuff, make the headache go away. And I wish I had written down what they gave me. They gave it to me through the IV. It was a medication I had never heard of before. And I had the worst side effect to it. It immediately, the second she started putting it into the IV, the room started to spin. I started to shake. I got the chills so bad and I was shaking. And the whole room is spinning. I'm feeling nauseous because of that. And I'm getting a headache because everything's spinning. And it was horrible. It was horrible. And I felt awful for a couple hours after. It took a while for it to wear off. And once it did, my headache came back again. And I was like, I'll just deal with it. I don't want to go through that again. I wish I had thought to write it down, but I was in no state to do that because I felt so horrible. So anyway, the Cervidil comes out around 3 o'clock in the morning, and the nurse doesn't really say much. And then we wait for the doctor to come. And my doctor doesn't come until 9 o'clock the next morning. He checks me again, and it was awful again. And he says that I am still high and tight. It has softened a teeny tiny bit, but not nearly what they need. And so they're going to do another round of Cervidil. And at this point, I'm super frustrated because I've been in the hospital for almost a complete day, and there is no progress at all. And here we are doing this thing again that takes 12 hours, and why didn't they start this at 3 o'clock in the morning when they took the other one out and they checked me? I mean, she must have known then that I wasn't progressive at all. Like, why wouldn't they just start it then? Because I waited for 6 hours for nothing. So I'm a little annoyed. We do the Cervidil again. And then 7 o'clock that night, my doctor comes back. So 2 hours before the Cervidil is supposed to come out. He takes it out, he checks me. I still haven't progressed at all. So he says, look, this isn't working. And I'm like, duh. And he says, my blood pressure had evened out since I had gotten to the hospital, and 90% of the time I was at the hospital, my blood pressure was fine. And so he said, you know, this is not working. Your body is obviously not ready for this. And the real concern that we had was your blood pressure. That is now fine. So we don't feel comfortable forcing your body to do something that it's obviously not ready for, especially when there is no pressing need. So they sent me home. So 2 days in the hospital for a failed induction, and off I go home, which I was a little bit annoyed. I had gotten really excited and looked forward to seeing the baby, but not then. So I went home on a Tuesday night and was told to keep checking my blood pressure. So I kept doing that. So that was my experience with preeclampsia. I was never officially diagnosed. I did have several of the symptoms of it, and it was a concern for the last trimester of my pregnancy. But I got through it, did okay, had a failed induction, got it through that okay, and in the end I did eventually have a baby, which that's the whole point. So Lincoln's birth story is coming. I'll go more into a few other blood pressure issues that I had later that week. Went back into the hospital Friday because of high blood pressure, and had my baby on Saturday, and that story is coming. But thank you guys for watching. If you guys have any questions, want a few more details about the story, I'm happy to go into a few more details. Just kind of a summary of events here. But if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. I'm happy to answer. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye. Something. With a fetal. My nose itches. And he also asked me to get an appointment with a fetal medicine specialist. Okay, so he was 37, almost 38 weeks. Right? Yeah, I think so. Anyway. Okay, quick side note, I just used the Way dry shampoo foam for the first time tonight because, you know, I'm a mom and who has time to wash their hair. And holy cow, it smells freaking fantastic. If you're thinking of getting a new dry shampoo,